We are so excited to have you all with us here at DePaul for our Louise de Marillac lecture. Thank you for your presence and for joining us this evening. My name is Joanna Dvorak, and I have the great privilege of serving in the Office of Mission and Values here at DePaul. And it truly is with great joy that we gather together this evening for our Louise de Marillac lecture. During my time here at DePaul, I have come to know and love Louise and her legacy. And for those of you who might not know Louise as intimately, I'm going to give you just a little snapshot of who she is within our Vincentian family. Louise lived in France during the 17th century. She was a wife, a mother, a widow, a woman of faith seeking wholeness. She was a nurturer, a caregiver, a leader, a servant of the poor, and a skilled laborer. As the co-foundress of the Daughters of Charity with Vincent DePaul, she proved that women living the vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience could safely minister outside the cloister. She revolutionized the role of women in France at that time. As a pioneer social worker and educator, she developed a network of quality services and prepared workers for the relief of a wide range of human services. As an advocate, she motivated the community to recognize their obligation to serve the poor and to work for just social systems and structures. Louise's ministry spanned her 38th to 69th years and encompassed every work given to the development and promotion of people. Her prolific correspondence and her spiritual writings are a reservoir of practical advice for planning, executing, and developing social works. She was not perfect. She was not without her flaws. She knew struggle and strife, but she also knew how to love. So in following that spirit of Louise, we gather tonight to be energized and to keep her fire alive. Through the generosity of the Office of Mission and Values and in collaboration with the Vincentian Community Service Office, we are honored to welcome someone this evening who is living the legacy of Louise in a very special way. I now invite Nicole May, a senior who's majoring in peace, justice, and conflict studies and political science, to come forward to introduce tonight's speaker.
How are we doing? Everybody's got their food, they're comfortable? Good. All right, my sophomore year at DePaul University, I was blessed with the opportunity to participate in a service immersion trip to El Salvador. Who else has been on a service immersion trip in this room? Awesome. Wonderful. This experience allowed me to understand the catastrophic history of the Salvadoran people, and through hearing their individual stories, I was deeply moved. Our final stop on the trip was El Centro, Arte para la Paz in Suchitoto, El Salvador. There we were greeted by a smiling Sister Peggy and her dog Luna. We spent the entire afternoon listening and sharing with Sister Peggy and spoke of what it meant to be an American nun during the Civil War in El Salvador and exploring the wonderful Center for the Arts. Sister Peggy's words spoke straight to my heart, and I knew I had to return to El Salvador. A year later, with the help of Joanna Dvorak, I returned and took part in the Casa de Solidaridad program in El Salvador. Every Friday morning, my world would be turned upside down in Sister Peggy's liberation theology class that she taught to my classmates and I. In addition to an early morning hokey-pokey warm-up at the start of class, she inspired us to think outside of the box, of the limited box we're often given in regards to our spirituality. She also taught us that we must heal ourselves before we can heal others. I am deeply humbled by the way that she has changed my heart, and I'm so happy for her to touch yours tonight as well. Sister Peggy O'Neill is a sister of charity and is the founder of El Centro Arte para la Paz in El Salvador, an agency dedicated to helping the country's poor and marginalized find healing through dance, art, and theological reflection. She has lived and worked in El Salvador for the past 30 years. A longtime peace activist, Sister Peggy has received numerous honors and awards for her work on behalf of the social and cultural development of El Salvador. She's received a master's degree in theology from Marquette and a Doctorate of Education from the New York University. And as a member of the Vincentian family, let's give her a big Vincentian welcome, Sister Peggy.
I think I won't be chilly. Once I get started, I'll warm up. I'm thrilled to be here. Really, I feel so welcomed. This is wonderful space, and I feel a lot of energies. I actually came with a formal paper because I have been traveling many buildings and wonderful gatherings in marvelous classrooms. And I've told a lot of my stories. I'll only tell one story as I try to gather my little presentation. But I do want to, I'm deeply grateful for the invitation to speak on part of the DePaul family. March 6th, I celebrated 60 years as Sister of Charity, and to come to a place where people identify with Vincent, people identify with Louise. You even have M&Ms, with Louise on the bag. So you are filled with the Spirit. You can't not see the Spirit of Louise, and you can't not feel the Spirit of Vincent here. So you have enlivened me. I have always been a happy Sister of Charity. I'm a little happier coming and going from DePaul. But I do want to thank, really, I have to read the Office of Mission and Values, because your campus ministries, or you have about 6 offices that serve so many needs. And that too has struck me. And I do want to thank in a special way Joanna, because she really, with her team, has prepared wonderful things for me. I have eaten the biggest baked potatoes in the Vincent and Louise house that I've ever seen. And everybody ate all of it. It was just wonderful. And I think it's because we're all so happy. We had little other things too, but the potatoes were wonderful. So, if you would, I want to say this to you. This is the lowest little thing I've ever, usually you have something like that if you have a paper, but forgive me. And I don't usually do this. This takes discipline. And that's really a gesture of love. That I would be this disciplined to not just talk, but look at me, talk with me. And I do not have many pages by design. I would love to hear from you, all right? And that's what happens to me if I just get going. I don't stop. So this will discipline me to give you time. And my talk has no title yet. I want you to name it. And I have my email address, so you can maybe not name it tonight, but write to me. Here's my address. P-O-N, Peggy O'Neill. This is if you're going to name the talk for me. You don't all have to write it. You have buddies. P-O-N-S-C, that means Sister of Charity. N-J, that's New Jersey. That's where my mother house is. Look at that. She's so good. Arroba, in Spanish, at, in English, gmail.com. So I want to hear what you heard. Does that make sense? Okay? Well, what did you hear tonight? What would you call what I'm trying to convey? That will help me. Let me begin with the story. I'll begin with the story, and the story is going to be repetitive to those who have been my students or my old friends, and even a few of my new friends have heard this story in these last couple of days. I begin with this one because it is connected to the title. Now, I'm a teacher, so I'm giving you hints, all right? As Nico shared, I have lived for 6 or 7 years in what was really an active civil war. And I have had a few experiences that I will remember before I close my eyes forever. They just don't go away. And some of them are hard, and some of them are so positive. So I want to tell you a positive one. I went to help a little girl who had been raped, and she was at a distance, and we had no means of transportation. I got a little note that she was raped from her mother. Would I please come? Because then I could walk back to the hospital in Suchitoto with her. And it was a long walk, about 5 hours, and I had no permission to leave to go because there were no other sisters home, and we could only go out officially in twos. So I was disobedient, but there was an urgency. This was a reason to be disobedient. And so I left the sisters a note, and I went to an area where there were a gathering of families. Nobody was living in permanent places yet. But these families had taken over an area of Montepeque. And I found them, and I took care, and I just kept hugging the young woman and planning what time we would leave in the morning and how we would walk, etc. News came that somebody in another town thought military were on their way where we happened to be. And so anyway, the community decided, that's what they always call themselves, we community. The community decided that they were going to leave the area because sometimes it was a false alarm if you got word the military were heading your way. And they did get into the back of a great big flatbed truck. We used them for sand. It's a long truck. I'm not talking about a pickup. There were a lot of people. We got on the truck and we go slowly on what was a pretty good road. And for some reason, the driver, maybe he saw lights in the rear, but he turned left on what was not even a road. Took us very little time to kind of go over a little embankment, which meant we all had to run off the truck. So I ran off the truck with everybody, left my backpack because I went to Catholic schools, and if there was a fire alarm, what you did was you just left. Didn't take anything with you, you know? Well, that's what it meant to me. Leave everything. I had my passport in my pocket, and I was okay. Got off the... I think the woman that I wound up with, there were 3 women, you scattered with small groups. No one said, don't stay together with a microphone. You just knew that if anybody was going to come, you were going to keep running, and if you were in little groups, it would be easier. It was an area of tall grasses. This story's taking longer than I thought. But it was an area of tall grasses, okay? So 3 of us kind of huddled, and one of the women had a baby with her. So she had a basket, and she took that off the truck. She had stuff in it for the child. The other one, I'm not sure what she had. I had nothing. And we chit-chatted. We talked about, oh gosh, tomorrow we were afraid. What would we do? What direction would the 3 of us run into? And etc. And we tried to sleep, and we did. We slept a little. But about 3 o'clock in the morning, it always gets chilly in El Salvador. It's about the only time of day, but it does get chilly, and we wanted body warmth, so we got closer together. And the woman opened the cesta, the basket, and she took out a stack of tortillas. I'm a nervous eater, so I was hungry. And she also took out clean rags to change the baby's diaper. Well, I saw those tortillas, and I'm sure I smiled. And the other woman, without anything, went like this immediately. Oh no, she said, we can't eat your food. You have to preserve your strength because you're going to have to feed the baby. And, well, and she said, oh, no, we can't. The woman with the tortillas took her index. This gesture I saw, and then I see this gesture, and the woman said, oh, no, she said, tonight we share our food. Tomorrow we share our hunger. That's solidaridad. That's solidarity. I said to myself, I'm staying here. Oh. Keep that story in mind. It is so embedded in my mind, I tear up every time I I try to share it. I came to the tiny country of El Salvador knowing to expect earthquakes. But oh, was I surprised at the number of faith quakes that would happen to me. Tonight we share our food, tomorrow we share our hunger. Solidarity, solidaridad, is not just a vague feeling of compassion. No, solidarity is an attitude, a virtue, a duty. It is a firm determination to commit oneself to the common good, to the good of all. Solidaridad, isn't it beautiful in Spanish? Say it, come on. Solidaridad. Again, solidaridad. Oh, you're good. Solidaridad es la tenura entre los pueblos. Solidarity, this is a Nicaraguan poetess, Gioconda Belli. She says solidarity is the tenderness between peoples. Tonight we share our food, tomorrow we share our hunger. A real faith quake moment for me, a real awakening. Louise and Vincent are smiling because they too were awakened by handing out bread, sharing food and sharing hunger. They also created structures that would ensure there would be servers. And they wanted to ensure that the poor would be served food in its many forms: bread, education, health care, compassion, dignified housing, etc. As I speak, you might want to integrate some of what you know about the two of them, this woman, this man, who dealt so creatively with the gift of being human. I also suggest you ask yourself tonight or sometime soon, how am I handling this gift of being human? I taught in New Rochelle, New York for years, and somebody wrote on the board, human being, and it's spelled B-E-A-N. I said, I'm never going to say human being again. Being, B-E-A-N. So that is why I wanted to say the gift of being human. The gift of being human. Anyway, here we are in Chicago at DePaul, celebrating Earth Day, I think tomorrow. For so many years, we had come to live insulated and isolated from the natural world. We had become autistic, not really able to hear, see, and feel her presence. Then something happened to all of us when we finally saw planet Earth from space. Think for a moment of the image of planet Earth, the whole Earth, that image that had an enormous impact on us spiritually. And I want to suggest it still does. That event, that image, was not planned to be an epiphany of soul. In fact, this mission to the moon started out with nationalistic goals to win the race to the moon. It began as a competitive challenge and ended up, I think, teaching us something about the necessity of cooperation. It started out as a materialistic and technological venture and ended up in spiritual territory, transforming us all. Yes, real soul stuff. We could see what Vincent and Louise saw, so many of the friends of God and prophets saw. We could see that we are kin to everything, that we are all connected, that we are all responsible for all. We could see in a new and wonderful way our responsibility for this fragile, beautiful planet Earth and of all the life it supports. Now, my friends, now more than ever, we can also see and sense this planet, this world of ours, as so broken. We cannot sidestep this fact, no. We need to feel the brokenness, stare at it with hope, and with a dogged faith that impels us to stay awake, to deal creatively with the gift of being human, and dare to live in solidaridad, in solidarity. You can Google for an answer, you can even Google for a mate, but you cannot Google to find out what is in your own heart. The passion that lifts you upward. You have to listen to what is inside yourself and discover your own fire. Not only do you need your own fire, but so does the whole world. I guess I came here today to tell you to get a life, a real life. Get a life where you're not alone. Find people you love and who love you. Get a life in which you are generous. Give your life away. Get a life where you see the real, the withinness of everything, where you take risks, where you nurture a zest for living. Feel the force within you and within the full moon, the butterfly, the raging river, your newborn. Check out the fuzz on her ear. Back there. Marvel at his tiny fingernails. At one university, they came with fingernails, he told me. He thought they grew as he grew, he told me. Check out, marvel at the tiny fingernails. Yes, get to see and meet the withinness of everything. Your lover, yourself, your wisdom sources, the holy books, the pain, the suffering, the lethal absence of hope in so many places, the wars, the poverty. Really see and touch the withinness of everything. We must keep asking questions, keep searching, keep discovering, keep staring, keep imagining different solutions to problems in society, solutions closer to the dream of the creator, the creatrix. Yes, we must be ready to take a long, loving look at the real. Be ready to look and really see the inner meaning of the universe and human life. Remember, what we grasp gives us knowledge, but what we let grasp us gives us wisdom. I want to dare you to be midwives, mid-husbands, midwives, to assist at birthing a world birthing a world long emerging, but clearly off course. Heal this broken world. Lend your hands and hearts to reshape how this planet is cared for, how it can continue to support life, how we can truly recognize our connectedness to each other in all life. I dare you to be midwives of solidarity. Be like Louise and Vincent, be inventive, cross frontiers, be adventurous. Will we midwife economic systems that are fashioned on solidarity, the tenderness between peoples? What response does human suffering demand of me, of us? Will we awaken to the scandals of hunger, excessive violence, corruption, and the impunity of so many institutions? If we do not perceive the scandals, I suggest we will never act. Our friends Vincent and Louise saw the scandals and they acted. Toni Morrison has remarked, personal success devoid of meaningfulness, free of a steady commitment to social justice, is more than a barren life. It's a trivial one. Think about a meaningful life, not just a comfortable one. Are we ready to admit that our God is always too small? Do we feel the need to cry out, "Let God be God"? Are we ready to admit that we have trespassed on the fullness of God by trying to lock God in a box, a religion, a gender? Will we try to midwife new metaphors for the creative energy and power that continues to invite us to renew the face of the earth? Will we try to use our creativity, which is a renewable source like love, to find ways to nourish and sustain our spirits? Remember, the imagination is like a muscle, and if we don't use it, it atrophies. Will we midwife and swim in a spirituality birthed out of the awareness that we truly praise God when we build right relationships with people and all other species on this planet? Yes, sin is destroying relationships. Who is our neighbor? The Good Samaritan, yes. Salvadoran Syrian immigrants, yes. Those murdered in the streets of Chicago, yes. Starving children in refugee camps, and the whale, the sea turtles, and the butterflies, yes. We have come to see the vastness of creation and its real connectedness, its real relatedness. And so we must read all faith stories in new context and see and feel them emerging, see them being liberated with new meanings evolving. The radical Catholic doctrine of the Trinity has been haunting me lately. And I am called to stand in awe at what these early fathers and mothers expressed about mystery. They express mystery as love flaring forth, expressed, received, returning, transforming, connecting, expanding. Oh, what insight! A radical insight that God, mystery, is not an isolated monad, but a living communion and relationship with the world. And they tell us that we are made in this image. I want to suggest that we need to return to the Trinity as the starting point to understand personhood. All is birthed and connected by this loving movement, this incessant verb, this life force of everything. In effect, the early fathers and mothers say, God is what God does, love. Do I image this image of God, of mystery? Transcendence, I want to suggest, and I have to hear myself say this. Transcendence does not loom over us. We are its privileged bearers. Wow. I need to hear that. It's within me. Transcendence does not loom over us. We are its privileged bearers. We must be conscious that each life breath that I call my own belongs to the stars, the galaxies, my neighbors, family, my enemies, past generations and those to come. The power of God creating anew unfolds in and through us. We must make an option for the whole, for the connections. I'm so grateful that I have long enough to see the new flowering of the doctrine of the Trinity. Listen to the poetess Emily Dickinson. She writes, she says, in the name of the butterflies, the bees, and the breeze, amen. Can't you just see her? In the name of the butterflies, the bees, and the breeze, amen. In the name of refugees and countries struggling to receive them, and all peacemakers, amen. Oh yes, we are all connected. In the name of Vincent and Louise and the poor so truly loved by them, and the family of DePaul, amen. We are all connected. We are all connected by that source of love, that life source, that sap of life, that life force of everything, the trees, you, me. To be person is to treat everyone with tenderness, live in solidarity, wake up from our insulation and our inhumanity. To be Catholic, according to Lilia Delio, is to live in conscious evolution, to engage actively in this unfinished universe as co-creators of justice, peace, mercy, and compassion. Catholicity is a virtue of relatedness, a dynamic energy of whole making, of solidaridad. As Megan Clark reminds us, solidarity is an attitude, a virtue, a duty. It is not a vague feeling of compassion or shallow distress at the misfortune of people near or far. No, solidarity is a firm determination to commit oneself to the common good, that is, the good of all, for we are responsible for all. As organisms, we are separable, but as humans, this separation is unthinkable. A human person is always in relation to others. Solidarity is the Christian way by which we strive to image more fully the Trinity. The motto of our Pope Francis and of all the Jesuits after Pedro Arrupe is we must be a man and a woman for others. The heart of the message of Pope Francis, shaped by being a man and woman for others as the motto, is the heart of the message of Pope Francis is the radical, uncompromising, and uncomfortable nature of solidarity. He reminds us that we have fallen into the globalization of indifference. The attitude that it does not concern me, us. It is none of our business. He warns us that we cannot embrace our own humanity fully if we do not embrace the humanity of our neighbor. I want to suggest to you that Trinity is a practical doctrine for human rights, for the care of the planet, in effect for solidarity. It enlightens not only our understanding of God using the language of relationality, but it also enlightens as well our understanding of who we are as persons. Do not amputate your creativity, your ambitions, your possibilities. Stare at how inhumane humanity is. Create healing spaces for those who suffer right here in Chicago. Because some of us are not scandalized enough. That's why they suffer. Because some of us are afraid to be midwives, to make real changes in the structures. If you think you are too small to be effective, you have never been alone in bed with a mosquito. I am convinced that most of you are ready to pick up and run with this gift of being human. You are ready to get a real life. You are ready to be midwives of solidarity. In the end, it is love that matters. Back to Louise and Vincent. We need a thoughtful love, a wisdom that sees and knows more deeply, a faith that trusts in the power of God who lives beneath our wings. Ours is the age of something radically new. It's more than a reformation. It is an evolution in love, in solidarity. I want to suggest something. You never see a hearse followed by a U-Haul truck. What we carry with us are those moments of oneness and our connections with all that is alive, with all we have birthed and nourished and loved, all the sharing of food and hunger. Anchor yourself, friends, in what is right, what is true, and what is kind, and give your one wild and precious life away. Long time ago, we Sisters of Charity were told that love is inventive to infinity. Yes, we companions of Louise, we know our spiritual DNA. It is simply towards boundless charity, toward boundless loving. Actually, I think it is your spiritual DNA as well. So keep on loving. Thank you. We have a few minutes. Maybe you want to take a minute to breathe, and I'll take a minute to sip, and I would be happy to respond. Yes?
Did you go down there by your own permission, or were you sent by your order to go there?
No, we Sisters of Charity from New Jersey and most of the Federation of Sisters, what we do, what you do, if you belong to a community, we sit in dialogue. So I did go to Chile and fell in love with people, women working with poor women. And I wanted to be like those women when I grew up. And so at 47, I thought it was a good time to start. And I met with women from Latin America who were, it was 1980, there was no internet, there was no, we didn't have cell phones. And these women had been in Chile a long time, and they wanted to be closer to the United States so they could tend to aging parents. And so I heard that they were going to tour America Central to look for a place to live and work. And I asked them if I could join them on the touring, and that's what happened. And that was 30 years ago, and mi pueblo. You know, I'm a teacher. So many young people came tonight, and they have been former students, including Joanna and Nico. I was teaching happily, and that's why I went to Chile. I was giving lectures to these women on feminist theology, and I learned more from them than I ever suggested to them. And so that's how I wound up. Two of us loved El Salvador and its people, and the other two opted to stay or go to Guatemala. But I knew no Spanish, and so I couldn't learn an indigenous language and another, Spanish. So, but no, you never do anything without like checking in with your husband, wife, or Mother Superior, or whatever we call it. You have to sit and just say, what do you think? I really would like to do that. And maybe if I had been seeing a psychologist because I was a little anxious and nervous at that stage of my life, they would have said, Peggy, this isn't the moment. But I was in good shape. And so they just blessed me. I went, and they can't believe and that means I was not ever earning a salary for 30 years. I didn't take in a great big salary because I wasn't teaching at DePaul. I was just teaching a small college in New York. But I mean, that meant the whole community supported me, or continues to support me for 30 years. So I'm glad I belong to them, and they belong to me. Thank you for your question. Are there any others? Yes?
So we at DePaul kind of come to know Vincent through university. How did you come to know Vincent?
The sisters who taught me as a little girl in grammar school. I saw them as happy women, smart, kind, spiritual, and they treated everybody equally. I noticed that. I'm one of 7. And I was worried about my little sister. You know, when you went, you said, watch the younger next to you when the bell rings in the schoolyard, make sure. So I was used to watching who watches for whom. And so I just decided in the 7th grade, imagine, that I wanted to be a sister of charity. I wanted to be a woman who could kind of give herself away. And when I was a little girl 77 years ago, there weren't too many options for women. You know, I didn't have to sit like, you're a nervous wreck. I can do this, I can do that, I can do this. I'm going to major in this. Oh, maybe I should combine this, you see. I didn't have that kind of anxiety, seriously. And but I did know I wanted to. I also thought I would like to be a sister journalist because I wanted to speak the truth. I grew up and I found that it's hard to speak the truth when you're a communications person. But the sisters didn't think that was a good idea for me. So, but I knew early that I wanted to try it, and that's what I did. And I'm, guess, the luckiest and the happiest sister of charity. My life has been wonderful. I know whose I am. That's a question for you to ask. Whose are you? But throw away the who are you. Whose are you? You can't do it without buddies and lovers. I'm sure the mosquitoes have a buddy. Nobody's alone, you know? And I needed, there was something instinctive in me that I needed to be with strong women who challenged. And then I needed thousands of students who asked good questions and stretched me. And now I need mi pueblo, El Salvador. And my dog. I learn a lot from my dog. Yes?
So you still live in El Salvador?
I do.
Okay.
I'll be going home Saturday.
Oh, okay.
DePaul has paid for the ticket.
Did you ever meet Dorothy Kazel and Dean Donovan?
No, I came to El Salvador in '86, and they were murdered in '80. And so we never met. But I did know the two Marinolas, especially Ida Ford, because her family lived in New Jersey, and I knew her brother Bill very well. But that part of what it drew me to El Salvador was to stand in the place. You never stand in the place of another, but you stand in a place and let continue the gift of from North America to Central America. So I didn't know them. I was much later coming. The two Marino sisters were in the country very short time, like a year and a half, but they have never been forgotten. Salvadorans remember you. They are an oral people, and they have this marvelous way of telling details. And I mean, there are people here from the CASA program who go back and, oh my, it's just marvelous. You really belong and you know it. That's why I couldn't escape if I wanted to. The love is too strong. When you bond in, even the sisters with whom I lived, you know, you aren't usually expressing fear frequently as an adult. Just having to live in an area where nothing is really sure you're surviving, it makes you more creative. It makes you reach out. We touch each other much more. That makes me sad when I come to places like here. You know, we're so going, or we're listening. You know, I got things in your ear or in your hands, that we don't make the eye contact, or we don't right away put out our hands and then you do an embrace. It's easier for me to be a bigger Peggy there, though, so I take the easy road, seriously. Yeah. I don't want to, any other, yes, dear?
You talked about the environment in your speech.
Yeah.
Do you do any specific work in El Salvador?
Oh, yes, especially in Suchitoto. Oh, our country is so tiny, and we don't have enough water, and the climatic changes, and post-war agriculture got no help, and everything moved to light industry in the capital. There were shifts, and we are in, I think, for another hard planting season, because the rains come later and later, you know. But we are quite conscientized. We are really made conscious, especially if you deal with the earth. You see the changes, you feel the changes. And so we, in my town, we have Monday, Wednesday, and Friday organic pickup, garbage pickup. Imagine, 3 days a week they pick up my organic. Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday, all the other junk. They come once a week, and they pick, once a month, and they pick up glass, plastic. But we can't do it all the way out to the Campo area. My town is an urban center surrounded by 86 rural communities. Well, they're getting conscientized. We only have one garbage truck. I mean, what can they do? But they must do. So I read the email this morning of everything that's going on in Suchitoto. We try. The people really are in for the long haul. La lucha must continue. You know, I learned even the sacredness of the earth, you know, from them. We have 6 months wet, 6 months dry. You can imagine the wildflowers after 6 months, after 6 Aprils. You know, they produce May flowers. And to see fat fingers on farmers gently touch these millions of wildflowers as you drive down roads in the farming area, you know, with a gentleness, and they say, que gracias. I mean, their gratitude is what they're saying. Look at this. It just, again, I say to myself, I'm staying here. You know? But we don't have enough help. We need more education. But in 30 years, that's why it's so good to stay. You really begin to see changes, because changes are slow coming. We suffer with a terrible fruit of the war, gang violence. That is our biggest challenge right now. How do we creatively deal with the inhumanity of many that have kept young people from having no options? You have too many options and you're nervous wrecks. They have no options, and that's hard too. And you know, we are the only, for instance, a little example, we are the only country in Central America that runs on the dollar now. Where do you think all the drug laundering happens, the money laundering? Where there's dollars. Why do you think we have so many gas stations when we're the smallest country and the most densely populated country in Central America? In the Western Hemisphere, the densely populated. It's all cash in the gas stations, you see. So again, you know, I see changes, but they come very slowly. But these people have a dogged faith that is an incubator for their hope. You know, when you get a premature, you put them in this little thing that's going to just keep it alive, as small as it is. You know, so they have that faith that what it means to be human is to keep going, to be resilient, make it better for the next. So that's what brings us to these small attempts. My town is distinct with the garbage pickup. And it was the result of a project, I'm happy to say, because we don't benefit too much from US money, but USAID funded that project years ago. It took us 2 years to get there. But now we have to find a way, and there's no money from the American to teach us how to visit 86 rural communities. They started burning, that's not good. They started burying, they're running out of space. And so they demand at least pickups of glass and plastic. Any other questions? There was a young man back there, and you can have another chance later. Yes?
You said you went to Chile to teach about feminist theology.
I did, a long time ago.
And that you learned more than you could have suggested. And I'm curious what you learned from the women there in Chile on the ground that you couldn't have learned about feminist theology in the classroom.
Well, let me give you 2 reasons why I learned so quickly. I watched them in a different way. When you're out of country, and especially if you're not capable of handling the language, you stare. So you notice, and you find other ways to communicate. You're dying to say something, so you find a way to say it that's not just the normal. So I learned more from the stamina of these poor women and these unschooled missionary volunteer women. Well, they didn't have degrees in feminist studies. It wasn't that they had the programs. It was just their loving them and helping them organize. And I saw the readiness. I went there in the time of Pinochet. And so it was a very repressive time. The only place you could gather were in churches. The cardinals and the bishops demanded that churches be safety zones. Didn't say just ours. All churches were safety zones. That's where they planned uprisings or movements. But their uprisings were 1 minute long, if they lasted that long, because the army was so prevalent. They called them lightning manifestations. That's all you got was a lightning time, you know. So I helped participate in, and I just watched these women so brave. The women that disappeared. So I learned women can do everything. I knew that here, theoretically. But to see it from women who were unschooled, but so educated into their rights. You know, so the creativity when you're surviving. Yeah, does that help or answer? I don't have a theoretical answer. I was just moved and drawn to, you know, they were surrounded by death. The same thing in El Salvador. I heard women at refugee camps, that's where I first started, tell me about so many who died. And I was concentrating on listening to the Spanish words to tell me what they were saying. I lost my father, I lost my husband, I lost my children, because they were in refugee camps, safety spaces. And I never had enough Spanish until a little while, I got to hear the tone in which they were speaking. And when they said, at the end always, they will not have died in vain. At first, I heard those words without focusing on their impact, or I heard them as, how lovely, romantic. They're never going to forget. Then I began to listen, and I heard it was an oath. They will not have died in vain, implying I will continue the lucha, the struggle. I'll tell you, I went to church, PhD in religion. Shortly after that, I had gotten to the pew and I said, oh God. I said O-S-H, that word. And I don't say bad words, but I remember saying, oh shit. I guess that's, to myself, I guess that's what I should be doing here. Making a note that Jesus will not have died in vain. I will continue to live that spirit of justice, truth, compassion, mercy. Now I know all about baptismal promises, but it's kind of here, not here. But when you say not died in vain, it comes from your womb. It comes from your gut. So, you know, they didn't teach me formally in class theology, but oh, wow. So many little things like that, you know. And it was usually the women that were all in church, so I go and I said, I bet they're making that oath here. Jesus will not have died in vain. I gotta do it, you know. And I say that now about Nelson Mandela. He will not have died in vain. Imagine being able to transform a country through rugby. If I were running in this election, I'd say, let's have rugby. Isn't that what he did? I mean, do it however you can do it, but do it. Be creative. Well, some man came in here tonight and told me he's going into politics. Where are you? He had a big round face. Did he leave? He left. I'm so glad that young people still want to use their energy to do that kind of transforming. No? Well, you're first.
Oh, no, I just wanted to ask on the garbage thing, because, you know, sometimes I get off the plane and I'm shocked, like, almost like the 70s here, where we just kind of threw things out the window.
Yeah.
Have you seen a big change in their
yes.
mentality?
Yes, yes, yes. I'll tell you, if you don't know what you're going to have to survive tomorrow and the next week, you can't think long into the future. But that's changing. There is education. There are more young people going to high school, not enough. The high schools aren't delivering well still, but I see changes. And they were accustomed to everything being biodegradable. I mean, they always bought a great big cesta basket to the market. Nothing. All of a sudden, everything's now in a black plastic bag. Why are you making plastic bags is the question. But they think, oh, we're doing just what they're doing in the supermarkets. Again, you can see how advertising, and so we have, if you're in the campo, the animals eat the garbage, not if it's packaged or in plastic bags. So again, it's education. Well, I do see a change, but it is shocking. But as a little girl, I remember an advertisement of a North American Indian with a tear on a billboard. And I remember as a child, my Uncle George, this bachelor who lived with us, he was a terrible smoker. And he would throw a cigarette out, and I would say, Uncle George. I mean, children change us. I imagine adults find it hard to turn the faucet off when they're brushing their teeth. And if you don't, your kids or grandkids will say, Grandma, Mommy, the water's running. They're being schooled. It's changing. Gracias a Dios. You had another question. And then maybe we can go. You have other meetings. I'm amazed. Yes? Go ahead.
I was just curious, we were so proud of the fact here in America that Barack Obama didn't just get elected, he got reelected.
Our government.
Has his tenure in Washington improved anything down there? I mean, has there been an impact of the Obama administration or the same?
How directly, I would clearly not be able to answer. Our last and appointed by Obama ambassador was the first one that lived there, apart from the war, who really spoke Spanish. Imagine? We have ambassadors who don't speak Spanish well. And she was a Puerto Rican. She was from Puerto Rico. So she wasn't just a Spanish learner of Spanish in the classroom. She had that warmth. I speak differently in Spanish. My body's a different body when you speak that language because of its, I don't know. Another language, I guess, is always different. And so she made connections, and she was appointed, and she was sent back because of Marco Rubio, literally from Cuba, because she once was married to a Cuban. And she was divorced from him for years. But they questioned that in Congress. But finally, Obama got her to come. She won when she came. We do have a seasoned diplomat right now for an ambassador, so I hope she will, in a time of this violent crisis of violence again, the woman I am speaking about, Maria Carmen del Ponte, she was a classmate of Sotomayor, another Puerto Rican. But Aponte was from a rather wealthy family in Puerto Rico, whereas Sotomayor lived in the Bronx, grew up in the Bronx. Yes?
I was just going to ask you to explain your Center for the Arts.
That would be a nice idea. And I'll do it as quickly as possible. My latest passion is peace, hoping that young people will be able to build a culture of peace by first touching with tenderness their own memories of war and post-war. And if you can touch your own memories with war, with tenderness, memories of war, like the traumas, we're using arts as the vehicle to get people to open those spaces where they can accept what has happened and how we move through and beyond. Not to let those traumas sit in a pressure cooker and close it again because it's too hard to open. And so we've been operating for 10 years, 11 years, and we have dance, music, art, yoga, classes, And we're trying, and our kids have a different identity. You know, they go home with a guitar on their back and they look like backpacks now, not these big, you know, shaped things. And like they go home like this, I'm a guitarist. I mean, they just hold their head differently. Or I'm a dancer. They kind of walk, you know. You can't carry your teclado home or your piano, but, you know, trumpets, they go home with a sense of, that's why we have a museum. If you know your own story, if you know the story of Vincent, I had something beautiful happen to me. Clearly you're not all Catholic in this university. Clearly you're Catholic, but you're not sure what that means anymore. All right, that's some of us, a little bit of that in me. I'm searching, what does it mean? What I really have to really worry about is being human, being Peggy. If being Catholic helps me, go for it, Peggy. And it does help me. If being a little Buddhist, I am a little Buddhist. Go for it. I'm a little Muslim. You know, I got a prayer rug in Peru. It wasn't that prayer rug. I made it a prayer rug. I love to kind of go in that fetal position. I can't do it anymore. I'm too old. But put your head on the ground and just touch the earth. It does something to you, just doing it. I know you're not all Catholic. I had this one young woman in the first night I came here, in the house, Vincent and your house. I mean, it wasn't your house, it was your house. Whose house was it?
That room.
Yeah, well, okay. Anyway, but who is the moderator, coordinator of the house? Okay, it is you. All right, I thought it was you right away. All right. I was in that house and there was this one young woman taking videos for a communications class of this dinner. And I kind of thought she wasn't Catholic. And for some reason I said after she talked, she was bubbly, happy, and just loving me. You know, she wanted to say thanks. She stayed to the end and she didn't have, and I said, and she said, no. She said, I'm Baptist. She said, but I'm Vincentian. Isn't that wonderful? Again, she grabs the spirit. Listen, let's not lock it in a religion or a box. If the spirit of Vincent pushes you, and you're not even sure about a G-O-D, let Vinny push you. Who are you? That's what I meant. Whose are you? Who do you belong to? Who do you hang out with? Who do you fall in love with? Let them. I had a student from Denver in my class in El Salvador, and I said, whose are you? And he said, the mountains. Whose are you? The lake. Where do you go to nourish your soul? Have a good life, pig out on it, and I'll come back someday.